Hello friends, today I'm going to show you an example of .NET Core JWT token authentication in a React application. So if you have watched my videos, then the previous video was about creating a JWT token authentication on .NET Core. So this was the previous application. I would be using the same one to create a connection with React application and how to manage a login with JWT token. So in this API application, you need to have these um, NuGet packages for running the API. So the ASP.NET Core Authentication, JWT Bearer, and diagnostics you may or may not. Entity Framework, yes, we are using Entity Framework, so an Entity Framework is required here. Entity Framework Core.SQL Server and Entity Framework Core.Tools. Okay, and this one, this code generation, you may use, you may not, because this is used for creating the views. When we create, right click on the controller and try to add a view, we need this one. And Visual Studio Web Code Generation .design, Newtonsoft.json, and Swashbuckle is by default when you create a web API. Okay, I'm sorry. If we move from the first one, from how to create this API, so this is Visual Studio 2022. So on the create new project option, if we go back, the launching screen would be something like this. And we created the new project, create new project, and then it shows up a couple of options to choose what kind of project you want to create. So this one is an API. So if you type in web API, like a web space API, then the first option, ASP.NET Core Web API. Okay, this is the first option that we are going to choose, and then if we put on next, it will give another option like what, where the location of the application. So once you select the location of the application, then it will move on to the next screen and show up like what framework do you want to use. So currently there is 8, and I used 6 here, so you may use the 8. And HTTPS would add an identity. Here we are not using the one that I used is without this one, without uncheck this one and use this. The remaining things just let it be there. We do not disable them, just create the application. And something would come up with a screen like a blank application here. And you wouldn't find these folders, the controllers, the data, and the models. I added these ones, okay? The controllers and data and model, I added this one. So in the controller section, I have an auth controller.cs. In the data, I have the DB context that we used. And in the models section, these are my tables. So these tables would be linked with your database. I'm using SQL Server database. So the user TBL, this one is the model class that I used to use a TBL. So these are the columns in my table. So I used an ID. This is an auto-generated column. So I marked it as a key, and a username, a password, email, and first name. These are just two other methods that you may add, you may not. Okay. So the ones that we are using is the application DB context, the auth controller, the user TBL, program.cs, and app settings.json. Okay. Yeah, these are the things that we would be using. So let me just remove everything else. CSS we're not using. Yeah, none of this CSS HTML home controller. We're not using this one. Okay, so these are the pages that we're requiring for this application: the auth controller, the app settings.json, the application DB context, the user table.cs, and program.cs. Okay, in the app settings.json, you need to make sure that you have this JWT option on the top. This section will have a key, an issuer, an audience, and the duration of how long this token needs to be active. And the connection string will have your connection parameters. Logging, you, this is a default generated when you create the application. You may need or may not need depending upon your use. Program.cs will have certain things that we require. What all things? This one, the builder.services.add authentication. This section is required. Do not worry, I will share this code with you on the description, so you should have a copy of that one, so you can follow that one and use it. This .add JWT bearer option, this one is required. Validate user is true, audience is true, lifetime is true, and these all things are wherever you are using this JWT issuer or builder.configuration, this has connection with your app settings.json. Okay, so these all things are fetched from the app settings.json. Whatever value is provided here, so these things we are using as parameter inside your program.css, in program.cs, and we are accessing that using the builder.configuration. Okay. Now below that, we need this add course. Okay, if you are using a front end application which is apart from .NET Core, then you need to have this option, which is builder.services.add course. Otherwise, you will get an error like course exception, no access due to course. Okay, now inside this builder dot with origins, you have to allow your the front end URL. So my front end will have a URL of 5036 whenever I'm trying to access. I'm sorry, this is related with the .NET course. So the one that will come up with React, I think that is 3000. So we will check that and we will change this one. Okay. No, let's change this one, React. 3000, I remember. So this was programmed for my .NET application. Do not, yeah, mention that. So just take it as 3000. Okay, default one. Now these things will be generated first. So yeah, it comes up by default. Now connection string here, we need to initialize the connection string here. Um, Below that, the app.environment is as you are looking at this one. And the remaining codes, you can just copy them. Authentication and authorization are both required here. Endpoints would be generated by default, and finally the app.rom. So this is the program.cs that you need to have in your application. Okay. Now app settings, we already checked. The NuGet packages you need, we already checked. Moving on to the auth control, this is the only controller that we would be using in this application. And from this, the action methods that you require are only these three: the login, authenticate user, generate JWT token, and yep, this much. Okay, these three. So what this login is doing, it's accepting a parameter with the table type that I have, and then it's checking it. It will go to the authenticate user. There it will check if data in the database it exists or not. If this user does exist, then it will generate a token, JWT token. And again, for generating the JWT token, it will come to the last action method, which is this one. So this action method is creating a JWT token, and post this JWT token is generated, it will return back the token. So once the user is authenticated, we will get a token. Now this thing will be fetched in your front end application, which I mean the React. The React application will fetch this token and it will work accordingly. So it will understand that if I get a token, so my user is authenticated. Now let's move on. So what all things do we have in the React application? I guess if you're watching this video, you already know how to create a React application. If you do not, then you may find my video how to create a React application in my videos list. So that will help you out. Otherwise, I will just give you a brief idea how we create that. So in your command prompt, you need to, not this one. So you need to create like npx create React app, and whatever your app name is there, and then template equals to TypeScript, hyphen template equals to TypeScript. So we are using TypeScript, so that's why. Now this, why do we have errors? Because I downloaded this one from my GitHub. When you download something from the GitHub or a React application from the GitHub, you would see something like this, errors all over the application. Why? Because it's missing all the packages. So you have to open your terminal, this one, new terminal, and when this one is ready, you do this npm npm install npm I. So once this is complete, your errors should be gone. So we will wait few seconds and see. Few errors will be gone and few errors will stay because we need another package to install. Wait here. Okay, while it's doing all this downloads, let me just tell you what files we need here. So we need api.ts, login.tsx, dashboard.tsx, private route.tsx, and the app.tsx is already there. So that's the default one, which should be there previously, auto-generated. We changed the app.tsx to this one. Like I have this router, routes, and route. Okay, so all the paths mentioned in this one. In the private route, this one will check if it's a correct authenticated application. It will navigate us to the dashboard. If not, then it will navigate to the login page again. In dashboard, you will have a welcome message and a button which is helping us log out from there, and it will remove the token. In the login.tsx, we will have a parameter wherein we will set up our username, password, and if there is an error. Okay. And we will have a return form submit. Okay, so form submit is like we will have all those labels for it's asking for email. Okay, this is not email, this is username and password. Okay, so this one will ask us for the username and a password. I haven't used a bootstrap, so this one will show up like a default page view. It won't have a bootstrap thing here. We will have that in a different application. Now in the API.tsx ATS, so we will have this. Um, we are using Axios. Okay, so yeah, we will use Axios, and then this URL. This one is our API URL. Okay, the base URL for our API, and it's slash API, and then if it's logout, then it will move us to the login screen. If it's not a login, if it is authenticated, then it will move us to the dashboard. Okay, so we're still waiting for the packages to be installed and come up. All right, so this is my React application here, and this is the login screen. By default, the first screen that loads, it's a blank one because I don't have anything on the default home page. So it's a blank one, and I just tapped in the login, which is the first screen that I should be hitting on. Now, we will do a small check. Okay, here is the API. This is the backend application, or .NET Core application, which will be needed to connect to the database. So we will use this auth login along with the parameters, the user ID and password, to connect to the application. Okay. So how we will check that? We will try to fetch the dashboard. So when it's trying to fetch the dashboard, it will check if there is any token, then it will take us there. Otherwise, it will just return us back to the login screen, so which is it's doing. How we will check this thing? We will go for the inspect option. That will give us the developer tools on the browser, and this one will load up all the TSX files that we have on our application. So I'm waiting for them. So if I go to the sources, I should see all my applications. Yeah, you can see that it is all open, and I have marked all the breakpoints where it should be checking the token. Okay, these are all our code. Okay, whatever I have written on my code on the uh, React application. So these are the things that is displayed over there. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All these 5 files I have opened here as well. App.tsx, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so these are the files that we need. Now on the dashboard, if I try to check the dashboard, it's going to check in the private route.tsx. It will check if there is a token. Okay, what is there in the private route.ts? You see this app.tsx, it is returning whatever it has found. Okay, now it should hit, you see, the private route.tsx. Now here it's checking if there is a token. Const is authenticated. It will check for local storage, and it will try to see if there is any value in the get item auth token. So this local storage, where you will see inside the memory, I'm sorry, inside the application tab, in this localhost 3000, you can see that the key and the value are empty. There is nothing there. Okay, but once we authenticate, you will find a value there. So this one will move on to the next step, and it did not find anything, so it will return us back to the login screen. You can see that it's is authenticated became false. Now it's going to navigate us back to the login page. So here we are. Now if we provide it with a wrong value, what will happen? Okay, I did something. Now it will check this. It will go to the backend application, and it will see if there is a value. Sure, it did hit our API. Now it has brought something in the parameters. So what in the model, it has brought values, which is the ID and the password that I sent. Now it will check if there is a value, then it will provide us a token. If not, then it will not provide us any token, or it will just return that there is it did not find anything. Okay, just waiting. Yep, this one has already returned. Okay, so user came up as null because it was checking the database until yeah, it was doing some double equals to null. Okay, now it said that it did not find anything. Whatever it found, it will return us to the front end. Let's just put a continue. So you see now there is an error message that the login failed. Check your credentials again. Now we will put a correct password. So what is the password? PASSW. How did I know what's the password? It's in my database. What was the table? User TBL. User TBL. Yeah. So, okay. Okay. So I put in the wrong credentials. ABC 1234. Now, when I use the correct ID and password, it's setting the database again, and this should bring the value from the authenticate user, and then it should generate a JWT token. Now you can see that it has got a hit to the action method where it's trying to generate a JWT token. Oops, hit on the wrong one. Please. Now I press a continue, so it's going back to the front end and it's checking it because it found the token. So it will take that one to the, you can see here is the token. Okay, here is the token. So it will set the local storage with the token value. The set token has taken up the value. Now it will take us to the dashboard. Well, while it is taking us to the dashboard, let's check the application tab once again and see if we have it. You can see that auth token is filled up with the JWT value that we fetched in the application tab, local storage. All right, so move on to the next step, which should be on the dashboard. Now dashboard is also trying to get the token whatever is set on the memory. So dashboard is again checking if there is an auth token in the memory. And now we have our dashboard. All right, so after we have this on our dashboard, so we already have the token in the local storage. And what will happen if we do a logout? So the logout system is it will remove the token from our local storage. Once I press the logout, so it's going back to the api.ts, the api.ts file that we have here in our React application. And from here, it will hit the logout method, the function. Okay. Here, what it is doing, it's trying to remove the auth token, and it will set the auth token to null, and then it will redirect us back to the login screen. Perfect. Now what happens if I try to go back to the login to the dashboard? I already see that it has removed that. So if I press on the dashboard, it will check for the token. It will not find any token and it will give us return us back to the login string. Okay, perfect. So that is all about this video. It's showing us how the token has been created in .NET Core and how it checked the database for the user credentials. I'll be adding these things to my GitHub repository and sharing both these applications there. So you will get all those things from there. And I hope you understood what we went through and what we did here. One thing I missed out informing you, like in the React application, if let me terminate the job. How did we remove the errors and what all things we did to make it a valid application? If we are downloading things from the GitHub, or we copied those things, we copied the items from the internet and tried to run it on our local system. So the first thing we did was npm I. So this one will install all the React related packages. Then npm I React Router DOM. Okay, so this is installing the React Router DOM because I'm using those things in the it was here in the private route. Okay, because we would be redirecting things to the login screen and to the dashboard. But we will be switching the screens. So that is how the React Router DOM works. Now below, then I have Axios. We will use Axios to connect to the database, like any kind of backend connection from the front end application. We need Axios. Okay. And that is all. So three things we installed. The first one is the packages, React packages. The second is React Router DOM. The last one is Axios, and then we can build or start the application, and everything should be fine. Right. So this is all we need to run this application. I hope you understood what we did now, and I already showed you what we have in the .NET Core application and what packages are needed in the .NET Core application. So those were in the csproj file. So these are the packages that we required. Okay, designer dot this one, the code generation and code generation dot design. You don't need this one, but the remaining things you will require them. All right, guys. So that was all about this video, and I hope you understood. So stay tuned, stay connected until I have my next videos. Thank you, and thanks for watching.